The Dark World strategy is probably one of the most underrated this format, and I'm here to show you guys why. If you haven't checked out the deck profile, be sure to do so. It is already up on my channel. I will leave a link to it in the description, so check it out if you haven't already, so you have a better understanding of why I'm playing certain cards and what cards I have access to. I also just want to preface that there are proxies in this deck. The only proxy is the face down card in the main deck, that being copies of Phantom Skyblaster. So I'll put it up on the screen right now so you guys can quickly read what he does if you don't know what he does already. And then in the extra deck, it is a copy of Muckracker from the Underworld. So I do apologize for the proxies, but I just did want to get out this video as soon as possible. So yeah, anyways, we'll finish shuffling up and we'll just do a going first test end to see what this deck can actually do. So starting off with Allure of Darkness, Grapha, Phantom Skyblaster, Rainbow, and Silva. So this is exactly one of the hands where Allure of Darkness is very good because it allows you to dig 2 cards deeper into your deck to see potentially more Dark World monsters. So here, it's actually not a very... We actually have a pretty bad hand. We are essentially... Our only play is the copy of Phantom Skyblaster. And the way that we're going to use it is normal summon it, summon 1 token, immediately link the token off for a Link Spider, and then turn these 2 into a copy of Muckracker. So once again, I do apologize for the proxy. Muckracker's effect essentially allows me to discard 1 fiend monster, special summon 1 from my graveyard, and it doesn't discard for cost. So what we're going to do is activate the effect of Muckracker, discarding the Snow, summoning back the Phantom Skyblaster. That's going to trigger Snow, most importantly, to allow us to add a copy of Genta. The reason we're adding Genta is because we want to get rid of these big Dark Worlds in our hand. Activate the Genta to search the gates of the Dark World. Activate the gates of the Dark World now, and from here we're going to be able to discard any one of these Dark Worlds in our hand to actually be able to keep going. So we're going to activate the effects of gates of the Dark World. I'm going to end up discarding the Rainbow, banishing the Genta. We are going to draw 1 card off of the effect of gates of the Dark World. And then afterwards, we're going to trigger both the Genta and the Rainbow effect. Rainbow is going to allow us to search a level 5 or higher Dark World. So we are going to add another copy of Silva in this case, because we probably are going to want to banish it for Allure of Darkness, which is going to let us dig deeper into our deck. But actually before that, we can activate the Rainbow to return the Genta to our hand. And since Genta is not once per turn, we can activate the Genta to deck thin a little bit by searching the second copy of Gates of the Dark World, which we will almost certainly be using. We're going to finish shuffling up, activate the Allure of Darkness, drawing 2 cards, and then banishing 1 from our hand. This is pretty interesting. We drew an extra copy of Grapha, which is pretty bad, honestly. We don't really want this. So we're going to banish it, which is why we play 3, so you're able to freely banish Graphas like this if you want to. We're going to activate the effect of Gates of the Dark World. Gates of the Dark World is going to discard the Grapha from our hand, banish the copy of Snow from our graveyard, and then draw a card. We draw Danger Jackalope, not too bad. And the cool thing here about Muckracker's Lock is these dangers in your hand essentially just allow you to infinitely use them. So what I mean by that is we can activate the danger, and then if we don't hit it, we discard that card, but we don't summon the danger because we're locked under fiend monsters. So essentially we can use this as quote-unquote free discards for as long as we can keep missing the dangers. And even if we hit Jackalope, that's totally okay because we do play a copy of Chupacabra in our deck, which is a fiend, which allows us to actually be able to still summon it. So from this point, we want to maximize the number of cards in our hand. So we're going to use Grapha to return the Rainbow to our hand. And then from here, we're going to activate the Mothman effect. So we're going to go 1 to 5 with the dice and then 6 reroll. Roll a 2, so we do hit the Silva. Silva effect's going to be able to special summon itself back out. From here, next, we're essentially now going into the Link part of our deck. So since we're locked into Fiends, we're not going to be able to do much with an actual end board, unfortunately. So what we can do is link away the Grapha and the Phantom Skyblaster, turning the 2 into a copy of Nightmare Cerberus. Then we're going to activate the Grapha effect to return the Silva to our hand, and then just do it again with the Danger Mothman. Rolling a dice, we do hit a Rainbow, which is okay. Activate the Rainbow effect to search another copy of Grapha, and then we're just going to keep activating the dangers in our hand. So even though this doesn't look very good, and in reality it's not the greatest, we are still able to actually play despite having a very, very bad hand, as you can see. Next up, activate Mothman again, 1 to 5. We hit Silva this time, special to Silva. We can bounce the Silva back with the rainbow. Do it again, Mothman, 1 to 5. We hit the Mothman, finally hit the Mothman. We probably don't want to be using it unless you know for sure your opponent's not playing Tearlaments or Darkworld. But let's just assume we don't use it. We'll activate the Jackalope next. Jackalope is gonna unfortunately hit itself this time, and this is where we actually have to start thinking of where we want to go with this end board. We're able to summon Chupacabra because it is a fiend monster, but unfortunately our hand is not the greatest, as we actually have pretty much nothing of value right now. But what we can do, however, is turn these into a copy of Nightmare Griffin. Griffin is going to allow us to discard one card to reset any one of our spells and traps, so if we can't use it this turn. We're going to end up resetting the Allure of Darkness for the next turn, draw a card since it's co-linked to Muckracker, and then next we're going to actually have an option with Salamander Catalyzer to summon itself and the Silva, and then bounce back the Silva with the Grapha. You can just summon the Salamander, activate Silva, summon it back, and then Grapha bounce the Silva. And then now you have more bodies on the board you can use for link summons. We can turn these guys into a copy of Phoenix. So now this protects our Muckracker, which is our follow-up, Griffin, and Phoenix from being destroyed by battle. So that's going to be really good. They're also gaining attack from the Gates of the Darkworld. If you knew your opponent was playing a deck that destroyed stuff by card effects more often, then you could have just left the Cerberus in your extra deck and made Phoenix first. But the final step we're going to do is bounce this rainbow back to our hand for some follow-up, summon out the Grapha, and call it a day. So of course it's not the most insane board. We did start pretty poorly with just the Phantom Skyblaster and like 5 Darkworld cards, but I think this just goes to show like sort of the potential that Darkworlds have. You're just able to essentially keep spamming monsters onto the board, and that's going to allow you to set up even stuff like this with a terrible hand like we had. Alright, so I'm going to quickly just go over a second test hand. So this video is probably going to be a little bit longer just because these test hands do take a while with the Darkworld deck. There's a lot of different options, and depending on our hits with like the dangers, then we can go a lot of different directions with our end board. But hopefully this time we draw a slightly better hand, which is going to allow us to showcase more of the power of the Darkworld deck. Alright, so finishing shuffling up, we are going to draw our opening hand. Chupacabra, Mothman, Silva, Rainbow, and Tsuchinoko. So this is not too bad. We do have 2 of the quote-unquote like risky dangers. So we're going to start off with the copy of Chupacabra, rolling from 1 to 5, and 6 being a reroll. We do hit a 2, so hit Mothman. Not the greatest because we pretty much never want to trigger its effect. We're going to activate the copy of Tsuchinoko next, so go 1 to 4. That is a 4, so we hit the Grapha, special summon it out, draw. Genta is probably the best draw, one of the best draws, if not the best draw in our deck, because now we can activate the Genta from our hand, which is going to add a copy of the Gates of the Darkworld. Activate the Gates of the Darkworld, effect, discarding very specifically Rainbow, the reason being we want to search more monsters to our hand, and we're going to be able to bounce a Genta back with either one of these, so we can keep going anyways. Banish the Genta, draw 1, activate Genta and Rainbow's effect, so summon back the Genta, activate the Rainbow. Rainbow is going to allow us to add a copy of Silva, and then from here the way we can keep turboing through our deck is with Rainbow bouncing Genta, Grapha bouncing Rainbow, and then from here we can activate the effect of Genta once again, searching another Gates of the Darkworld, playing the copy of Gates of the Darkworld, and then from here we are going to be able to activate the effect of Gates of the Darkworld this time, discarding Snow. The reason we're discarding Snow is because we're going to use Snow to grab us a discard fodder, so we're going to draw 1 card with Gates of the Darkworld effect, activate the Snow, and then since we actually drew Cerulli, that opens some very interesting lines for us. We're going to be able to use the archives and use this to get multiple discards to trigger both the Cerulli and just draw us more cards. So we're going to activate the effect of Darkworld Archives. Archives effect is just going to discard the copy of Cerulean to pump up our Darkworld monsters this turn. Doesn't matter, we're just using that to discard Cerulean to the graveyard. We're then going to activate Cerulean as 1, Darkworld Archives as 2. Archives is going to discard Rainbow, allowing us to draw 2 cards. And then Cerulean is going to summon to our opponent's field. You want to put it under the extra monster zone, so if you play a copy of Akashic Magician, you can bounce it back to your hand. Activate the Cerulean effect, which is mandatory, by the way. We're going to discard the Silva, activate the Silva, summoning itself back. So your opponent has been hand looped 2 already. They're just going to start their turn off with 4 cards, assuming we can't do this again. But oh man, we can do this again. You probably want to put the Cerulean in the same column as the Tsuchinoko, just so our Akashic Magician gets full value. But either way, from here, we can then activate the effect of Rainbow, bouncing back the Silva, just so we have an extra body in our hand. And then from here, we can turn the Grapha and the Rainbow into the copy of Akashic Magician, bouncing both of these to our hand. Like I mentioned in my deck profile, you don't have to play Akashic Magician, but Akashic Magician is incredibly good in situations like this specifically. Next up, we are going to activate the effect of Danger Nessie. So we're going to go 1 to 6. We are going to hit the Silva, summon out the Danger Nessie, draw 1. Silva effect is going to summon itself out, and then from here we can bounce it back with the Rainbow, and then we're actually going to leave the Rainbow on board for now. Next up, since we drew a copy of Grapha, we kind of don't want so many of these guys in our hand, so we can activate the dangers once again in the hopes of making a card like Saryuja. We'll go 1 to 6, activating Jackalope's effect. Hit the 6, hit the Silva, summon out the Jackalope. Silva's comes back, we draw 1 off the Jackalope. Draw session, cool. Now our opponent is not going to be able to stop us pretty much whatsoever. We're going to link off these 4 monsters for a copy of the Saryuja Skuldread. Saryuja Skuldread effect is going to allow us to draw 4 cards and put 3 back. So we're going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4. We can put the Bigfoot back. Since we already have the Graphas in circulation, we can think about putting the Grapha back, although you probably want to keep one in circulation, so we can just put the copy of Tsuchinoko back, and then Allure of Darkness should be fine. Yeah, this should be fine. Next, from here, we can activate the Darkworld Accession, discarding the Grapha and the Cerulean, summoning out our copy of Grapha Overlord of Darkworld, which is going to trigger the Cerulean once again, going to our opponent's board. Its effect is mandatory. Discard the Silva, summon Silva, so your opponent has now been hand looped for 4. So they're starting the turn with 2 cards. And we're still not done yet. We have all these. We have Rainbow in the graveyard to bounce this back. We also have Grapha in the graveyard to bounce. Specifically, you want Rainbow back, and the reason being is we're going to activate a session to discard it and then trigger the Rainbow to search for the last copy of Grapha in our deck, which is going to allow us to give us interruption with either the Accession or the Puppetry on our opponent's turn. At this point, we still have a bunch of bodies on the board, and we're just still nowhere close to being finished, which is honestly the most insane part of this deck. We can activate the Rainbow, bouncing the Silva back to our hand. From here, we can turn the copy of Graph. We can activate the effect of Saryuja Skuldread first, summoning out the copy of Silva, linking these 2 for a copy of the Nightmare Cerberus, activating Nightmare Cerberus to destroy the Cerulean since it is a special summon monster. We draw a card off of the Cerberus since it was co-linked, and then activate the effect of Nessie to search any danger monster. So we're going to grab ourselves the Danger Tsuchinoko. At this point, we still have enough gas to keep going, so we are going to absolutely keep going. We're going to use the Grapha to bounce back the Rainbow. Next up, we are going to we want to get more bodies on the board somehow, so we're going to end up setting our 2 disruptions, activating. Before we activate, actually, we're going to want to link these just to make space into the Unicorn. We're going to activate the Salamander Catalyzer next, discarding the Silva, to summon itself back, and then Silva is going to summon itself back through its own effect. Next up, we are going to activate Grapha, bouncing the Silva, summoning it back to the board. We are almost done at this point. We can link these two into a copy of Nightmare Griffin. Griffin effect is going to discard the copy of Tsuchinoko. Just reset Gate to the Dark World. Doesn't really matter. The reason being is we just want Griffin as the disruption. What we're setting back doesn't matter because we have all the things in our back row already. Draw one card from Griffin since it's co-linked. That's going to trigger the effect of Tsuchinoko to summon itself back. And then from here, we are almost done. We're going to be able to link the Star Yugioh and the Tsuchinoko for a copy of Macracker, and then overlay the Chupacabra and the Catalyzer for the copy of Abyss Dweller. So at this point, our end board is pretty good. We have Puppetry to banish 3 cards from our opponent's graveyard, a Session Diffuse again into another Grapha, which will trigger Grapha in our hand. We have a Griffin, which prevents our opponent's special summon monsters from using their effects. We have Grapha as an Omni Negate. We have Archives as like further draw power during our opponent's turn. If our opponent activates a card, we just have to activate Silva, or Grapha, pitch Silva, Silva summon itself back, loop 2 more from our opponent. So we already hand looped them for 4, by the way. So they're starting off their turn with 2 cards. So it needs to be like even a card, even like Sphere Mode and a 1-card starter won't even be enough, because we have a Session to still summon another Grapha during our opponent's turn, popping a card, and then we have Puppetry to banish stuff from our opponent's graveyard as well. So realistically, your opponent's not breaking this board with 2 cards in their hand, plus being under Dweller as well, not even mentioning that. So pretty insane what this deck can actually do. Honestly, the deck just needs that one sort of good hand to kickstart it off with. We started off with a pretty average hand, couple of Dark World monsters, couple of Danger monsters. We didn't see any of our power cards like Salamander Catalyzer or Phantom Skyblaster. So considering all that, this is still a really, really good end board. So if you guys are excited to see more of this deck, I will be coming out with a guide on what you need to know when you're either playing this deck or playing against it. It'll just sort of be like a complete in-depth guide to the relevant Dark World cards and the strategy. So if you're excited for that, let me know by leaving a like, commenting, and subscribing. But once again, be sure to check out the deck profile if you haven't already, and let me know what you would change in the deck if you have any suggestions. With that being said, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.